So a new Childish Gambino album just dropped about 12 hours ago as I'm filming this, and I've got a few thoughts on it, so I thought I'd make a video, but this isn't exactly a new album. So before I give my thoughts, let's just have a quick history lesson as to what the hell Atavista even is. It really just kind of seemed like Donald Glover was everywhere in 2018. On March the 1st, the second season of his highly successful comedy series Atlanta premiered on FX, which, by the way, is a perfect season of television. Then in May, he was both the host and the musical guest on Saturday Night Live, premiering 2 new Childish Gambino tracks, Saturday, and of course, This Is America. This Is America was then released as a single the very next day, along with its now iconic music video directed by Hiro Murai, and it quickly topped the US Billboard Hot 100. And this song was everywhere. I mean, it was praised for its lyricism, the production, the choreography and dance in the music video. I mean, it's crazy to think that this was originally intended to be a Drake diss track. Wow, I guess it always really has been a 20v1.
They tell me Chubb's the only one to get your hand-me-downs and party at the party playing with his nose now. And Baca got a weird case, why is he around? Certified lover boy, certified pedophiles. Wop, 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 wop.
Later on in May, he appeared in a Star Wars movie, and then in July we got 2 brand new Childish Gambino songs, Summertime Magic and Feels Like Summer, the latter of which got an animated music video later that year in September. These 2 tracks, along with This Is America, were huge hits for Donald, and word of an album began to bubble, intensifying into 2019 when his streak continued with a Google Pixel ad. I remember this ad coming out and people, myself included, being really hyped for this snippet. Then Donald put out a movie, Guava Island, also directed by Hiro Murai, where we hear Saturday and Summertime Magic again, plus a few new songs. And then the week after Guava Island released, he headlined Coachella, which was huge. He played some classics from Because the Internet and Awaken My Love, as well as the 3 songs he'd released the summer prior. Apparently, after performing This Is America, he drank mineral water and hugged Janelle Monáe. Thanks, Setlist.fm, I guess. But he also started off the show with 2 brand new songs, as well as an extended version of that song from the Google Pixel ad, now dubbed Human Sacrifice. And God, was that shit marvellous. But weirdly, after that, things just kind of died down. I mean, we didn't really hear from Donald. Other than an uncredited role as alien on TV monitor in that Men in Black film you forgot about, and an admittedly very huge film in that Lion King movie you tried to forget about. But Atlanta was on hiatus because Donald's 3 co-stars were busy getting very famous, and we didn't really hear from him very much music-wise either. Then we get to March 2020. Do I really need to explain what happened in March 2020? So yeah, literally the week after lockdown began, Donald released what he said was going to be his last album under the Childish Gambino moniker, 3/15/20, released on March the 22nd, March 22nd? There was clearly something up with this album on first glance. I mean, no album cover, it was named after its release date, and all the songs, bar 2, named after the timestamp at which they appear in the overall album. And I was super disappointed by this release, man. I remember listening to it just after it came out and just feeling so cold. I just remember being bored by it. It was a slog to get through, with its runtime drawn out by these odd rainmaker noises and tribal chants that served as transitions between the songs. The mixes were muddy, and the vocals were unclear and bafflingly processed. And apart from 19 minutes 10 seconds, an almost Prince-sounding pop track, I thought the album was kind of dog shit. I didn't even revisit the album in full a second time until 2 years later, and when I did, I actually wrote a review for it, which I'll pull up now. Why go to the party at all? Okay, here we go. This album is a complete joke. An album so bad it made me lose faith in the creativity of one of my favourite artists. An album so bad that after its release, people on the Donald Glover subreddit were speculating that the album was a joke or was bad on purpose. That's true. I mean, I did try and find evidence of it, but I distinctly remember at the time, people were like, oh, he's going to drop another album next week, or, oh, this is like not a joke, but like, this is not the album. He's got something else planned. First of all, let me address the obvious. The album cover and the titles are an absolutely baffling choice. How am I supposed to recommend one of these songs to a friend? Are they meant to memorize 4 digits like it's their fucking PIN code? Did Glover really think a song named 24 minutes 19 seconds would generate conversation? That's a good joke. Human Sacrifice, banger. Saturday, banger. Atavista, banger. With all these brilliant tracks, I was convinced I was in for an incredible album. But when release came around, none of these tracks were anywhere to be seen. What we ended up with was an overproduced, bloated, emotionless mess with no coherency between any two songs. Many of the instrumentals, such as on 12:38 and Algorithm, are interesting enough, but the vocals leave a lot to desire. Many of the tracks either start or end with extended sequences of white noise or surreal sound effects that are meant to serve as transitions from one track to another, but just serve to decrease what little replay value these already dull songs have. One of the most baffling choices is the inclusion of a reworked Feels Like Summer, now retitled 42:26. Really rolls off the tongue, with an ambient intro and slightly shorter runtime. By the time this album was released, Feels Like Summer had been out for 18 months, so wasn't new music at all, and the track feels completely out of place with the rest of the album. I'm not really a fan of this one. I was hoping to find something to latch onto with this re-listen, but I just came out of it hating the album. Hating? Jesus! I pray that Glover comes back and redeems himself, because this is just an embarrassing send-off for a man with such a long and diverse music career. 1 star. So yeah, it's safe to say I'm not really a huge fan of 3:15:20, but what the hell does that have to do with Atavista?
Bigfoot, get out the way. I'ma show ya how to move this, yeah.
In the past few weeks, we've found out a little more context about 3:15:20. Donald admitted that the album was released unfinished and unmastered. He was pretty much scared that the world was going to end due to COVID and just wanted to get it out there. Which makes sense. I mean, Donald's since gone on record to say that he thinks that this album is his best. And although it's not an album I particularly loved or even liked, there's still elements I can appreciate on it. And it's also kind of tied to my presence here on YouTube. It's a bit of a tangent, but I'll very quickly explain. I essentially started this YouTube channel at some point last year or the year before called Murph's Vault, which I used to upload demos and unreleased and leaked tracks from artists I like. And then at some point last year, there was a huge leaking of a bunch of Childish Gambino tracks from the 3:15:20 sessions, new versions of Human Sacrifice, of Saturday, plus new ones altogether, like this track Warlords, and they weren't available on YouTube, so who better to do the job than little old Murph? So I threw them up on the Murph's Vault YouTube channel until Donald Glover's label sniped me out of the flipping sky, dropped a nuke on the Murph's Vault channel, RIP. Which is, fair enough. I was completely in the wrong legally, and they had the right to take that music down, but I still stand by, to this day, that up until the channel got taken down, I had the best edit of Human Sacrifice. Anyways, enough of that. Atavista, which is supposedly the finished version of 3:15:20, released today, alongside a music video for Littlefoot Bigfoot. Oh, and would you look at that? He's given the tracks titles. To Be Hunted, Sweet Thing, Human Sacrifice. Hold on, Human Sacrifice. Well, I wonder what the finished album cover's gonna... Donald, come on, quit being all secret and cryptic. So I listened to Atavista a couple times the first thing this morning, and going into it, I really didn't know what to expect. I was certainly more excited to hear Human Sacrifice and a more polished version of 1910, the track now called To Be Hunted, but if you recall my review, I said I hated 3:15:20. Like, how much more could my mind be changed? The only real new track on here is the title track, Atavista, replacing the previous intro, 0000. An album opener at the end of the day should really give a listener an idea of what to expect from the album, like setting up its tones and its themes, and I guess just its general sound. And Atavista does a much better job at that than its predecessor. I'd say the album is defined by themes of love, a general fear of the uncertainty of the world, a little bit of psychedelic drug use, some aspects of faith, and you can see pretty much all of those clear in the first track. And they're touched on over this very groovy instrumental that's laced with an exciting blend of modern synths and a very tropical sort of influence, especially in the percussion. So yeah, I actually really like this new opener. Track 2 is Algorithm, and this one feels like the most direct carryover from 3:15:20 over to this version of the album, which is a little disappointing, because there was always aspects to Algorithm that I liked, but I thought it could have been vastly improved on. I've always liked the first minute or so of this, the intro, the start of that really thumping, pounding beat, and this is one of the only tracks on 3:15:20 where I thought that rough vocal processing worked. It's actually something I've tried to imitate a couple of times in my own music, because I really do like the way Donald Glover's voice sounds, particularly on the first verse of this. But it never really seemed to go anywhere, and my opinions of the song haven't really changed based on this new version. The weird outro where the song just sort of messily deconstructs itself is still completely intact here, and it sounds just as unsatisfying as ever. But here it's just made worse by the fact that it doesn't even fit in with the rest of the album. Like, the rest of those weird transitions are nowhere to be found, so it just seems super out of place here on Algorithm. The mix is a little cleaner, it makes it a little bit more palatable to listen to, but overall, I just can't help feeling a little bit let down by this one. Time is okay. The vocals are improved on exponentially here, particularly on Ariana Grande's verse. I can really appreciate the unconventional rhythm here, specifically in stark contrast to Algorithm's harsh thumping flow. Yeah, overall the track just doesn't do a whole lot for me. I mean, I can appreciate the vocal melody, but Gambino's lyrics are a little corny. And this is coming from someone who can appreciate cul-de-sac era Gambino. Donald's much more enigmatic performance on the next track, Silo Sabe, has made it grow on me exponentially. Like a mushroom. I always liked the beat on this, but the new vocal take and the new mix has made it really come together for me. Donald's tenure on the track goes on for nearly 4 minutes, but he keeps up the energy for the whole duration, and I love the little beat switch ups, like the radio bit. Sounds really cool. 21 Savage also features on this track, who I've never really been a huge fan of, but I guess he's serviceable here. He has 1 or 2 cool lines, but overall I guess I could have done without him. The song runs on long enough as it is. I do really like these little synth movements that happen in his verse though. They kind of remind me of one of the old like iMovie stock sound effects. So yeah, Psilocybin brackets Millennial Love is pretty good. To Be Hunted sounds amazing. The clean vocal performance sounds way better than the crunchy and distorted vocal take on 1910. The drums and the bass hit so much harder, and those new harmonies on the chorus just make it feel so much fuller. It's just a really nice, uplifting song where Donald's imparting upon the listener knowledge that he got from his dad about finding inner beauty, understanding and owning your own inner beauty, specifically from within the black community. And like I said, I get real Prince vibes from this, from Donald's delivery itself, to the shimmering synths, to the epic guitar solo. 1910 may have missed out on its chance to be a hit, but I think To Be Hunted has the chance to be huge. Much like Silas Sabe, I think the next track, Sweet Thang, suffers a bit from its length. But regardless of that, I think the stark contrast between the older version of this song and this new one is drastic. 2419 was just kind of painful to get through with its awful vocal processing, but Sweet Thing has its moments of, well, you know, sweetness. The very thick, meaty bass line that acts as a backbone to a lot of the first half of the song sounds really cool, as does the guitar that plays during Summer Walker's verse. There's not really a whole lot wrong with the track, and I found nice little intricacies within the track with each re-listen, but it's not something I see myself coming back to a whole lot. Littlefoot Bigfoot was always going to be a weird choice for a lead single. It always felt out of place on 3:15:20, especially after the loud and boisterous 32:22, which is completely absent from Atavista's tracklist. But amongst cleaner mixes, Littlefoot Bigfoot finds a very welcome home. It's a track I was always sort of fond of. It's unapologetically goofy, kind of similar to California off of Gambino's Awaken My Love, another underrated Gambino song. The kick has kind of become the star here, accompanying the country-style guitar and making this very infectious, very danceable groove. Gone is the old breakdown, replaced with a sort of almost whiplash-inducing beat switch into a young nudie verse. I wasn't really a fan of that old breakdown. It sort of just made the song fizzle out in an unsatisfying way. So the instrumentation specifically on this new beat switch, very welcome change. I wasn't a huge fan of young nudie's verse at first. It felt kind of crass and unsubtle, especially in contrast to Donald's more metaphor-laced verses, but upon re-listens it grew on me a little bit. It just adds a little bit of edge, especially in a very unexpected place on the album. So yeah, I actually really like Littlefoot Bigfoot, and the music video is a lot of fun as well. Why Go to the Party finds itself being demoted from a full-length, albeit a little bit underdeveloped and boring song, to an interlude, one that serves as an intro to the long-awaited Human Sacrifice, which takes up Feels Like Summer's place on the track list. Pretty much the only problem I've had with a lot of the earlier versions of Human Sacrifice, whether that be the Coachella version or many of the leaked versions that came out along the way, is that it feels like a lot of build-up and not a lot of payoff. And with this studio version, I don't really get that. Although the differences are admittedly quite subtle, to me they make a lot of change. I know the studio version hasn't even been out for 48 hours, but I think I'm pretty comfortable in saying it's one of my top 5 Childish Gambino songs of all time. I really love this. The studio version just didn't let me down. The chorus is euphoric as ever, Donald's vocals are amazing, and the instrumental strikes that Amazing balance, same as Atavista, between the sort of jungle-inspired club beat and the glistening, shimmering synths, not glittering, shittering. I love the outro with the choir and Donald's almost ad-lib singing. It's a great track, and I'm glad that it's finally widely available for more people to hear. I never really found a whole lot of substance in 4748, but Atavista's answer to it, the violence, is a huge improvement. Perhaps even the biggest improvement in sound from version to version. Being a funk song at heart, the lackluster bass just completely killed the original, and the vocal processing, as with a lot of other 3:15:20 songs, was just crap. It's insane how much a great mix can just uplift the quality of a song. The stark contrast between 3:15:20 and Atavista is proof that making a track work goes a lot further than just the composition itself. Previously, the spoken word appearance of Donald's son at the end of the song always felt really cheap and gimmicky to me, but when the rest of the track is pulling its weight, it has a lot of power and weight to it. Atavista finds its closer in the aptly named Final Church, which is just absolutely bursting with energy. Donald's delivery just makes me feel like I'm in his Gambino madcap church, like something out of an episode of Atlanta. The chorus is nice and uplifting, but the real standout start here are the verses, just absolutely teeming with energy and charisma. It's a really nice place to end the album on, and I see these 3 tracks as a sort of triptych too. Each one sort of tackling a different version of seeing light in dark times. Would have been really nice to get an album like that in 2020, wouldn't it? Wow, yeah, I'm surprised how much I'm really liking Atavista. Literally every choice made here was an improvement on 3:15:20. Swapping out the tedious intro for one that actually sets the tone and is an incredible song on its own. Swapping out Feels Like Summer, a track that didn't really fit the album at all, for the absolutely seminal Human Sacrifice. Scrapping 32:22, as well as all those weird, awkward transitions that just serve to drag the album's run length out. But with the rest of the tracks, my vast difference in opinion just comes down to the audio engineering. It's crazy to look back at my review from 2022 and see just how negative an opinion I had. I thought this was a terrible album, an album that I hated. But really, it was just a good album that sounded bad. I want to apologise to Donald Glover for saying he failed as an artist, or whatever I said in that review, that I'd lost faith in him. Because in his shoes, would I have done anything differently? If I thought the world was going to end and I was sitting on my best album, hell yeah, I'd get it out there. I've seen people online who just really connected with 3:15:20. And if you look at the time it was released, I mean, who can blame them? But even though I'm going to be listening to Atavista, they'll still have their version of the album to listen to. What's that? He removed it from streaming?